Okay, so the whole set of story starts with this gentleman, John Burr Williams. I remember very well when I wrote my level 1 in equity, there used to be one reading purely devoted to all these people who contributed to finance. Okay, in terms of what was the methodology of whom and what they contributed. So the whole idea with dividend discount model was originated because of him. Harvard University, founder and developer of fundamental analysis, okay, what we are studying as a part of CFA. And he was the first one to articulate the concept of discounted cash flow, in particular the discount model. So this dividend discount model that we're studying today is purely the brainchild of this gentleman here. Now, in discounted cash flow, previously we saw there were three approaches. One was the dividend discount model, then free cash flow, and then the last one was residual income. Okay, all these are discounted cash flow approaches. So we just want to find out that which one is to be used when, okay, and then what significance does it possess here. So let's start with dividend first. Does the definition of, this is a question, does the definition of dividend as a cash flow ignore earnings, as not all earnings are distributed to shareholder? It's a question. What do you feel? So when you're using dividend discount model, what you're saying is that value of a stock is present value of future dividends. So which means you are purely concerning yourself to dividend, which means you are completely ignoring earnings. Correct? No? Why? Correct. Yes. Correct. Yes, you're right. See here that let's say a company has EPS of 100, it pays a dividend of 10. Other company EPS of 100, it pays, let's say, dividend of, in fact, 100. Okay. Now logically this dividend discount model applies to both this company as well as this company. In this company, of course, you get entire amount of dividend paid to you in the form of a cash flow. In this case, though the amount of dividend is very small, what is high is retention ratio. That means that amount is being reintroduced or reinvested into business, which would result into higher earnings in future period and higher dividends in future period. Right? So even though that earnings is not considered as a cash flow, dividend discount model indirectly also incorporates that earning capacity or earning generating capacity of a organization. Okay, so the answer to this is no. Sorry, I didn't understand. Mm-hmm. Correct. Correct. So then you pay out dividend. So that's, see, so whether dividend is good or not good, so that depends on the consistency of dividend that we'll see in the coming periods. But what we are trying to point that we are making here is that a dividend discount model does not ignore earnings, because at the end of the day, 2 points. Number one, that dividends are coming from earnings, and number two, that if the company pays less dividend, that goes and earns future higher amount of dividend, that's automatically incorporated into the model. Second is interesting. Are the number of companies paying dividend increasing or decreasing? Increasing? Yeah, who's directly linked to markets here? Increasing, Tushar. Decreasing. Which was that pharma company? 500 rupees, right? क्या लगता है, increasing or decreasing? This number is decreasing. Okay, so this is of course I did not find a conclusive research on Indian markets, though I googled a lot. Um, there is a research available, the reference is given in the curriculum by Fema and French again, where they've calculated how many percentage of total number of companies paid dividend, and 80s and 90s that number used to be about 60%. Okay, that in total 60% of all the companies used to pay dividend, and now that number, so their last research was in 2001, that time that number was about 20%, which means that number of companies who used to pay consistent dividend, that number is now on decreasing, especially in US markets. So dividends are appropriate for whom, and this is a very interesting point. Number one, a company that has got history of dividend payments. Okay, now we will discuss about this. Just remember this point: the company needs to have a strong history of dividend payment. Number two, dividend policy is clear and related to the earnings of the firm, which means if the earning is increasing every year, then the dividend should accordingly increase. Asset is being valued from the perspective of a minority shareholder, because dividend discount model doesn't give you a control perspective. So let's look at some interesting set of data. Let's look at how is the dividend policy of Apple. $549 and ratios. Okay, so this is data from 2004 to 13. Dividend, this is earning per share here in this particular, is it visible? Yes. And this is dividend. Dividend is given for the last two periods, 2.65, 11.40, and the payout ratio was 6% and 28.7%. So is a dividend discount model good model for valuation of the stock? No, because of the first point, which says that there has to be a good history so that you are more assured about the payment methodology. You can see one more stock. Let's see the dividend for Coke. See a dividend earning 3.4, 2.4, so on and so forth. Dividend 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1. जैसे प्रसाद हो, मंदिर जाओ लेके आओ. So what do you think? Yes or no? They have a history. Yes. That here what you can comment is that earnings are not linked to, dividend is not linked to earnings, right? Next year, no matter what happens, you know that dividend is going to be 1. That means there is no linkage between earnings and dividend. So again, not applicable. Following this? Let's look at one more now. Microsoft on Nasdaq. Okay. Earning 0.75, dividend 0.16, 0.3234. So this is how the data has been moving for 3 years. Payout ratio 21, 28, 27, 23, 22, 38, 34, 34.4. Can we use? Yes, now there is some consistency between earnings, and especially in the last 2-3 years we can see that that number is in the range of 35 odd %. So we can use dividend discount model here. Let's look at one more. McDonald's. Point 0.45561 1.5, and the dividend payout ratio in the range of 30s, then 40, 70, 40, about 50, 50, 48, 53, 55. Can we use? Again, yes, but again now the variability of payout ratio is relatively higher, so we want to be more skeptical. Okay, so there are a lot of research available that whether this DDM is actually used in practical scenario. So what a lot of analysts said, that those companies which has been paying healthy dividend. Oh, there was one more I wanted to show you. Hold on a minute. Yeah, this was very interesting. Class A shares. Okay. EPS $5309, 8548, 71150, and then this is your dividend. So is dividend discount model applicable? Okay, so let's go back here. So whether this DDM is clearly used. So a lot of people feel that yes, it can be used if the company has been paying healthy amount of dividend. But a lot of analysts later on said that FCFF and FCFA model, which we would be seeing later on, are more preferable compared to dividend, and primarily because we have to make certain assumptions here. Okay, so when we use that Gordon growth model, we have to make certain very strict assumptions that ROE will remain constant, company wouldn't raise additional equity, and therefore it becomes a bit theoretical in its orientation. Free cash flow is appropriate when company does not have dividend payment history, or a dividend payment history that is not related to earnings. Free cash flow corresponds with the firm's profitability. That means free cash flow is growing as the profitability is growing, and asset being valued from the position of controlling shareholder. In that case, free cash flow is an appropriate model. In which scenario you feel it would be extremely difficult to use free cash flow? Loss-making companies might still have positive cash flows. Huh? Credit sales. Yes, negative cash flows or negative free cash flows. And this would typically be in which type of industries? Distress is one, okay. Yes, growth companies. Right, so a good example would be, let's say we got numbers of Flipkart. I think yesterday it was an 80. They again posted about 280 crores of losses. Right? So with Flipkart, what they have been doing for the past few years is that they have been investing heavily into different channels and heavily into marketing, brand building, or any company which is in the growth stage, right? So that company will keep on investing, and since the investment would be substantially higher than profits, the cash flow available would be negative. And if they are negative, then using FCFF format or FCFA format is going to be relatively more difficult. And in that case, the only option we'll be left with is the residual valuation model. Okay. Are we okay here? Residual income is most appropriate for the firms that do not pay dividend or do not have history, negative free cash flow, and this residual income that you'll will be studying later on, this is purely based on your accounting profits as against cash flow. Though they call this as a discounted cash flow method, it's more of a accounting economic profit method, and therefore the quality of accounting has to be good. That means transparent financial reporting standards. Are we okay? Yes, we just discussed. See, it's a non-dividend paying. A is eliminated. Heavily investing into expansion, and it's forecasted to continue the same. which means it's very unlikely that they will have free cash flow left. So the only possible choice for us is residual income model. Are we okay? Yes. I couldn't think of good quality A and B options. It's really stupid. Yeah. So, people could have answered saying this is definitely not A and B. This is correct, that they are sensitive to these two numbers, growth and R, the required return estimates. Okay, so let's start the calculation. Let me cover all the basics here. So we can have a single stage model, a two-stage model, a three-stage model, and then there is also something called as H model that we will see later on. Okay. Now, what is single stage? That if I tell you what was the last dividend, okay, and then henceforth every year the dividend will grow at the rate of 6%, then it's a single stage model. If I give you what was the last dividend for the next 2 years, or let's say next 3 years, it will grow at 12%. After that, forever, it will grow at the rate of 6%. Then it's a two-stage model. A last dividend for the first 3 years, let's say 10%, then next 3 years 8%, and after that forever at 6%, then this is a three-stage model. And H model is also a two-stage model. Okay. But the difference is that what we did in two-stage model is we said year 1 it will grow at 13, year 2 it will grow at 13, sorry, year 1 12, year 2 12, year 3 12, and suddenly in year 4 it's 6. But in real life it doesn't happen that way. That 12, 12, 12, then probably 10, then probably 8, then probably 6, isn't it? So here, though it's a two-stage model, you would say that the fall in the growth rate is going to be linear. Okay, so there's a formula, we will see the intuition behind it later on, but then that model would be called as a H model. And then of course, so you can do an example here. Let's say last dividend paid by the company was 10. Expected continuous growth rate is 15% and required rate of return is 20%. Find out value of the stock. Which formula are you going to use here? Single stage, the Gordon growth model. $230. So how are you calculating this? Value of a stock at time 0 is equal to dividend of time 1 divided by R minus G. D1 can also be calculated as saying D0 into 1 plus G. So which is 10 into 1 plus 15% divided by 5%. So 10.15 divided by 5%, which would come out to be 230. This is a single stage model. Are we okay here? This G is called a sustainable growth rate, and how do we solve for this? R into R, return on equity into retention ratio. Okay. Let's do a two-stage model here. Last dividend 15. For the first 3 years, growth rate is 20%. Fourth year onward, it is going to be 6%. Cost of equity 9%. Find out value of the stock. 703. Anywhere else? No calculator. Wow. And this is right after level 1 exams. Good. You might rethink sitting in these classes now. This is very uninspiring. Yes. स्वप्निल, बचपन में करते थे हम लोग ये प्री केजी. 761. Let's do it together. You first have to find out first 3 dividends and then the terminal value at the end of year 3, because the dividend becomes constant from year 4. So year 1 is 15 into 1.2. 15 into 1.2 raised to 2. 15 into 1.2 raised to 3. These are my first 3 dividends. Then we will find out the 4th dividend, but won't use it as a cash flow, but use it for the purpose of finding out the terminal value. So 15 into 1.06 raised to, so no, this number into 1.06, that's your 4th dividend. This number divided by 3%, it will give you terminal value here. Insert all the cash flows and discount them at the rate of 9%. Let's do it together. What keys you follow on the calculator? 15 into 1.2 equal to STO1 into 1.2 equal to STO2 into 1.3 equal, oh I'm so sorry, into 1.2 equal to STO3. How much is your STO3? 25.99. Into 1.06 equal to STO4. Into 1.06 equal to STO4. RCL4 divided by 3% equal to, RCL4 divided by 3% equal to, this is STO4. Okay, overwriting the earlier number. Then the cash flow button. Second clear work so that all the numbers in the cash flow are deleted. Go to cash flow 1. RCL1 enter. Cash flow 2. RCL2 enter. Cash flow 3. RCL3 plus RCL4 equal to enter. RCL3 plus RCL4 equal to enter. Press the NPV button. 9 enter. Downward arrow compute. How much? So this is the answer. So practice. Now there was one point I wanted to cover with Gordon growth. I think most of you would know it, but I still would like to be comfortable with it. See, this Gordon growth model is actually a mathematical formula. This is nothing but a formula of growing perpetuity. Okay. So we know the formula of perpetuity. Formula of perpetuity is simply cash flow divided by discount rate. What happens in a Gordon growth model, that cash flow is going to increase every year, and that's why in the denominator we say R minus G. Okay, so if you want to experiment, let's do it this way. Let's say at time 0 a company paid dividend of 10. We expect that every year it will grow at the rate of 12% and cost of equity is 20%. Okay. Now you can use Gordon growth formula and calculate value of stock. How? You will calculate dividend of time 1. Okay, dividend of time 1 would be 10% into 1 plus 12%. That will give you 11.2. Once you have this 11.2, you can calculate value of the stock by saying dividend of time 1 divided by 20 minus 8. So this minus this, it will give you 140. Now what you can do is, you can say, why should I value it at time 1? Why not at time 3? Okay, so let's in fact go to time 3. So my dividend here is 14. Now using dividend of time 3, if I value the stock, I will get value at what time? Value at time 2. So the value of stock here would be 140, again divided by 8%, which would be 176. Now if we decide to discount all the two cash flows here, this plus this, the first cash flow we will discount for 1 year. So simply divided by 1.2. The second cash flow is total of these two. 176 plus 12.5, correct? And we will discount this for how many periods? 1.2 raised to 2. Now take a total. The answer is same. If you take 5 dividends and use the 6th dividend to find out the value at time 5, discount all of them backwards, the answer would be same. Okay, that's how it's a growing perpetuity. There's a mathematical derivation. So what this effectively does for you is, it takes future value of all the possible growing dividends and tells you how much it's going to be worth today. And of course it comes from, in 10th standard we used to have geometric compounding or geometric progression, right? So there used to be a formula in calculus for GP. So this formula is derived from there. We'll be doing that in the later part today. Let's start with questions. Do it quickly. Is the answer? Yes, is A the answer? Yes, your cash flows are, cash flow 1 would be 5 and cash flow 2 would be 40.5. And then discounting them backwards for 2 years at the rate of 15%. Yes, cash flows would be 1.65. Put them in your cash flow function, do it quickly. 1.70, 1.75, 42.25. They go to your cash flow function. B. Done. Atul, आगे आंसर? Yes, Gail. Got it. Should we move on? Next question. Quick. Be careful. Don't get overconfident. Yes, what is the answer? C. The answer would be simply 5.3 divided by 9%. It says expects to pay dividend next year, so you don't have to again compound it for one more period. Abhimanyu. चले आगे. Same question. Okay. So now the difference was, this was past dividend, whereas we used dividend of time 1. So 5.3 into 1.06 divided by 9%. Are we good to move? Mohit. The asset is undervalued, Mohit. Is the answer higher? Yes. Because the fact that asset is undervalued, you are going to earn more, which means your holding period return would be higher than the required return. If I trap you, I'll feel very confident about my question writing abilities. Yes, how many few for A? B? C? Okay, the answer was A. Yes. So multi-stage means three stage, right? Five stage, six stage, eight stage. Then you want to put them in a spreadsheet so that the calculation can be easier. Therefore, they are also called as spreadsheet models. Good. Good one. Reverse calculations. BRM. How many of you reverse calculated by using options and then finding answer? Anyone? Achha. Both ways. You can try either ways. If you decide to do reverse calculation, I always recommend doing the center number. So that if this is 9 is incorrect, you can either go to left or right without solving it. But yeah, we'll solve in the regular fashion. So my numerator would be 1.5 into 1.07 D1 divided by R minus 7%. This should be equal to 53.5. So 53.5 R minus 7% of this number is how much? 3.7 is equal to 1.5 into 1.07. 1.605. So shift this number here, so it becomes plus 3.745 and this divided by 53.5. ये 53.5 ही था ना? So then it would come out to be 10%. Are you okay here? Do this orally. The answer is C. Small trick. And your retained earnings are clearly 6. There's a difference of 6 here. Total profits were 9. If you've written 6, dividend is how much? 3. 3 million divided by 1 million, the dividend per share is 3. 3 is the current dividend, right? That we are on 1st January 2013. So this is what has been paid. We want to value the stock. So next year's dividend is going to be 3.15. 3 into 1.05 and divided by the difference between the two, which is 10%. So 3.15 divided by 10% would give you 31.5. चले आगे मोहित. Yes, what is the answer? C is the answer. If your G is higher than R, then GGM cannot be used. Then the model fails, and therefore we would not be able to determine using the Gordon growth model. Are we good to move? How many of you feel C is the answer? C is not the answer. So the reason why I put this question here, you need to remember this, that Gordon growth model works in case of negative growth rates, which means even if the growth is negative, the GGM model will still work, and you have to solve it in the same regular fashion. Why would it be 0? Yeah, it could be. I think it would be B. 4.25 divided by 0.2. 21.2. So the options are incorrect. Yes, the answer would be 4.25 divided by 20%. क्या आंसर आता है? 20. So I wanted option B to be 21.25. B is the answer. Are we good to move? Bye. Hmm. No. No, 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 no. This is dividend of time 1, 4.25. Correct? Divided by R minus G. So R minus G is coming out to be 20%. This gives you value of time 0. So value of time 0 is coming out to be that number. Are we good to move? So the conclusion is Gordon growth model can be used for negative growth companies. Do you want to take a break? Okay. Now reverse calculations. Calculate and interpret the implied growth rate using GGM and current stock price. Okay, so we've seen that how equity valuation can be used to infer market expectation. So if you have a stock price, can you find out G there? So this is a formula, but I think you can solve it without a formula. Start. And this is based on actual data, an actual gentleman sitting in the class. So Mr. Gupta is trying to determine whether Coal India Limited is good investment. He decides to use Gordon growth model to calculate how much growth shareholder can expect. The price yesterday was about in the range of 285. Dividend, last dividend was about 15. The beta on BSE website is 0.59. I have assumed current RFR to be 8, premium to be 7. Find out the expected growth rate implicit. RFR 8, premium 7. Hmm? 12 point? No, that's not an option. I'm not showing the options. You have all the data on this slide. Calculate growth rate. Hmm? I don't remember. 6.86. जी निकालना है. कॉफी पिलाओ को इसको यार. Pankaj, how much? 4 point? 4.5. 4.5. Okay. Yeah, the options that I have is 4.02 and 6.52. 6.86. See how you can solve this is 285 equal to, first let's calculate equity risk premium. 8 plus required return, 8 into 0.5, 7 into 0.59, which is how much? 12.13. So 285 is equal to 15 into 1 plus G. Why? Because this is the current dividend which has been given, divided by 12.13 minus G. And then you have to solve for G in this equation. So 285 into 12.13%, which is how much? Take this on the left hand side. 34.57 minus 285G is equal to 15G. So 34.57 minus 15, which would be 19.57, is equal to, this is 300G, and then G would be equal to 19.57 divided by 300, which is 6.52. So the correct answer here is B. You might get a different answer if you do not take this G in the numerator. If you assume that this 15 is current dividend, then the answer would be incorrect. I should have been smarter to put that as one of the option, but be careful with this step. Are we okay here? Okay. Now it's a very interesting concept. See, by this time I'm sure you must be clear about value companies and growth companies, isn't it? That for growth companies, at times you might end up paying more money than what is currently justified because you expect that the companies are expected to grow. So if you're looking at two companies, okay, so let us say Infosys and Cognizant, and what you want to do is you want to find out that when I pay some X price, how much of that X actually comes from the value perspective but how much of extra I'm paying so that I'm expecting that there would be higher earnings in the future. And then that extra component, which is the growth component, is called PVGO, present value of growth opportunities. In the same fashion, you can find out what is the PVGO implicit here. And so for any company, the market price is made of two parts. One, that if the current earning remain forever, then what should be the price? Plus, because the earnings are expected to grow, I'm willing to pay something extra, which is PVGO. Right? And then you can compare that I'm paying, let's say 300 rupees of PVGO for Infosys and let's say 200 for Cognizant. Is it worth it? If not, then you can again comment that probably I'm paying more amount for Infosys. Are you following this? Now, how do you find out? So earning of time 1 divided by required return plus PVGO. So you write down the formula. We'll do some discussion on this. For future growth. For future growth. Let's do an example. Let's say you're looking at a company. What's wrong? You're looking at a company which currently earned, let's say 10 rupees. Now the required rate of return on this company is 10%. Now the company's got two choices. This is earnings, not dividend. That company earned this 10 because let's say they had capital of 100 and their ROE was also 10%. So that's why their profit was, so this becomes book value per share, BVPS. Book value per share 100 into ROE of 10%, which gave us EPS of 10. Now if you assume that this 10 is what company will earn every year and it will keep on paying you 10, 10, 10, 10, it is not going to reinvest. If you assume that, then the value of the stock becomes how much? 10 divided by 10%. The value of the stock is 100. Okay. So this is the value that I'm willing to pay for the company because it is growing at the same rate, 10% every year. That's what it is earning. Let's assume instead of paying that 10, what company decided to do is it decided that it is going to reinvest that. Okay. So next year the total capital of the company is how much? 110. But if the company again keeps the ROE constant, okay, so let's say if the ROE next year is also 10%, next year EPS would be how much? 11. Next year's EPS worth 11, which means today's EPS have how much? 11 divided by 1.1. Following this, because my required rate of return is 10%, so today's is 1.1. Again divided by 10%, value of the stock is 100. So if a company's required rate of return is 10% and it is also earning 10%, there is no growth component. It's growing at the same rate. But what if this was expected to grow faster? Let's say this is expected to become 20% here. Then next year company will earn 22. Present value of that 22 today is 20. 20 discounted at the rate of 10%, the value of stock will become 200. What we'll say is that though value of the stock is 200, out of that 100 is because of what company earns today, the current value. But that remaining 100 is because of the future growth opportunities expected. Okay, so any stock will be made of two parts, the current value and the expectation of future growth. And that expectation of future growth is the balancing figure. For example, you take any stock, let's say, let's look at I think we have Coal India Limited's this thing. So the current EPS of the company is 13.90. here, and we just calculated the required rate of return in the previous question, which came out to be how much? 12.13. So 13.9, so let's say 14 divided by 12%. 14 divided by 12%. 116. So the current value of this company is worth 116. If it earns the same thing every year, value is 116. But how much is the value in the market? 284. So 284 minus 116 is PVGO, the present value of growth opportunities. 167. See, the Coal India stock currently is priced at 284. Correct? The current earning is about 14. Required rate is 12%. If the company maintains the same earning, right, and if this becomes a perpetuity, then the value of the company should be how much? 116. But the fact that in the market it's trading at 284, the reason why people are paying more, because in future there are growth opportunities, all of them combined together. So PVGO. So present value of growth opportunity would be 284 minus 116. That over and above the current level, whatever we pay, that's PVGO. Is this clear? This is interesting. Write down. So I think, out of everything that you're learning today, I think this is the most intuitive and directly applicable part. So this is 1 by R. See, now what this is telling you is the same intuition is now working for price earning ratio. Okay, first the derivation. This is your simple Gordon growth model. V0 here E1 plus R divided by PVGO. This was your PVGO extension. If you divide both sides with E1, V0 divided by E1, this is your T market price, is a PE ratio. Typically this number is called as justified leading PE ratio. Why do we call this as leading? Because we are using E1 in the denominator. So now, see, there has been continuous discussion that typically if you look at growth stocks, their earning ratios would always be, price earning ratios would always be on the higher side, isn't it? Now if you want to know that for a growth stock that PE ratio is higher, how much of that PE ratio is actually the current worth of the company and how much of that is coming from PVGO, the future growth opportunity. So whether that is really justifiable, you can bifurcate that into two parts. You can say that with the current level of earnings, it should be in this range. But how much of that PE is made because of future estimates, that is going to come from PVGO divided by E1. Is this clear, or should I repeat this again? So think of it this way. So you are looking at two stocks, okay, stock A and stock B. Now what you say is that this is a completely no growth stock. Okay, you don't expect it to really grow substantially. It would keep on generating what it is earning now. Let's say price earning ratio is 15. This is a growth stock, but this is earning, let us say, about trading at a P ratio of 32. Now what you want to do is you want to find out that out of this 32, how much is the current value and how much I am accounting for PVGO. So with that formula you can divide it into two parts. Following this, and once you've divided that into two parts, then you compare it with this stock, and if this turns out to be more than 15, then of course this stock is overvalued. Making sense? So let's do it for Coal India now. Their price was 284. 284 tha. Can you tell me these two parts? 116 and 167. Okay. This is my PVGO, correct? Now what I'm using is a slight estimation of the formula because we don't have E1. Coal India ka E1, we'll have to forecast that. We don't want to do that. So let's use proxy of E0. So if I divide this with 14, what was my E0 last year? 11.95. That means that growth component in that price earning ratio is 11.95. Let's look at how much is the actual PE. It's about 20. So that differential 6 is what the company has as of now, and this component is coming from the growth part. Are you following what I'm 6 nahi? About 8. So what we have tried to do here is that we've divided them into two parts. So if I decide to compare now Coal India with, let's say, some company which doesn't have very strong growth prospects, which is available at a lower PE, then that company's PE I can compare with this component and then determine whether it's overvalued or undervalued. Is this clear? So there are good case studies on this. We'll deal when we solve questions. I don't know. Good question. Could be. What are you getting answer? A. See, the trick here is all earnings are paid out as dividend. If all earnings are paid out as dividend, your retention ratio is 0. Retention ratio is 0, your growth rate is 0. Your growth rate is 0, the current dividend and next dividend is going to be same. Follow this, and therefore you can simply use the formula where you would say that current market price of 52 is equal to 2.25 divided by required return of 12% plus PVGO. So reduce this on the left side and get the value, which is coming out to be how much? A. So then A would be the answer. Is the logic clear? Should we move on? Then the question is correct. So 8.22 divided by 8% plus 19.72 is the answer, which is B. So 122.47 is the answer. Are we good to move? क्या आंसर है? -5. Because 45 is equal to 5 divided by 10% plus PVGO. This would be 50, therefore this has to be -5. So A would be the answer here. No, I mean even a value stock shouldn't have negative PVGO. But yeah, what it means is that markets are of the opinion that the company would have a negative growth. A negative PVGO means company will have negative growth, and therefore compared to current earnings, the subsequent earnings would be lesser. And because of those lesser earnings, I don't want to assume current earnings, so reduce something from there. So yeah, negative PVGO, we can't call this as a value stock. Okay, so we'll quickly make this flowchart. Please let me know when you need a break, but make sure your absorption is correct. चाहिए क्या? Yes, no. Let's continue after this LOS gets over. See, price earning ratio. These ratios can be either justified or based on actuals. So when you say justified, your numerator is V0, and here your numerator is the market price, which is P0. Now again, in justified you can have a leading P ratio or a trailing. Leading P ratio or a trailing. For the actuals, we don't have to do much calculation. P0 divided by E1, P0 divided by E0, straightforward. For leading, this is going to be V0 divided by E1, and this is going to be V0 divided by E0. Okay, so you write up to this, and then we would be deriving two formulas. Are we together up to this? So see how we can derive this leading formula here. What we know is V0 is equal to D1 divided by R minus G. If you divide both the sides with E1, what you get is this number divided by E1, this number divided by E1. What it will give you is payout ratio, correct? Payout ratio divided by R minus G. So this is the formula for justified leading PE ratio. Payout ratio simply divided by R minus G. Are we okay here? Should we move on? How can we derive trailing? So again, say this. V0 is equal to D0 into 1 plus G divided by R minus G, correct? Let's divide both the sides with E0. So V0 divided by E0, D0 divided by E0, this I'm dividing this with E0 into 1 plus G divided by R minus G, which means this is payout ratio into 1 plus G divided by R minus G. Okay, so when I wrote my exams, I never remembered these formulas because it's very easy to derive them. Single step derivation. Payout ratio into 1 plus G divided by R minus G. Is that okay? Yeah, let's stop for 5 minutes and let's meet again after a break.